Welcome to Chapter 14 of our Civil War unit, The Generals. Robert E. Lee's Tactics. Robert E. Lee was very successful thanks in part to his military education. Like many other Civil War generals, both North and South, Lee had attended West Point. However, Lee used this to take advantage of other generals. One thing he learned at West Point was to not divide your army. But Lee did this and succeeded because other generals did not expect it. West Point also warned against going into battle with significantly fewer troops. Yet Lee still succeeded, thanks in part to his own ingenuity, but also thanks in part to the incompetence of many of the Union's early generals. Thomas Stonewall Jackson. He lived from 1824 until 1863. He was born and raised in Virginia. He was admitted to West Point in 1842. Jackson was initially at the bottom of his class because of inadequate schooling as a kid, but by graduation in 1846, he had established himself as one of the best students in his class. He served in the 1st U.S. Artillery Regiment during the Mexican-American War, where he met Robert E. Lee. In 1851, he accepted a teaching position at the Virginia Military Institute. Some of his curriculum is still taught there to this day. Like Robert E. Lee, he was sent to end John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. Stonewall Jackson continued. Jackson gained his initial fame and his nickname with his success at the First Battle of Bull Run. Jackson is best remembered for his success during the Valley Campaign, where he successfully held back Union General Nathaniel Banks from invading the Shenandoah Valley and prevented General McDowell from reinforcing McClellan's troops. Contrary to his nickname, Jackson's tactics often consisted of moving forces quickly and taking the enemy by surprise. During the Battle of Chancellorsville, Jackson was wounded when in the confusion some Confederate soldiers mistook him and his men for Union soldiers. Jackson took 3 bullets to the arm, forcing it to be amputated. He died soon after of complications from pneumonia. Ulysses S. Grant. He lived from 1822 until 1885. He was born and raised in Ohio. He graduated from West Point in 1843, but unlike Lee and Jackson, he was not the top of his class. He served in the Mexican-American War, but after the war he found military life to be dull and began drinking. This got him removed from the army, and for several years he spent time bouncing around different jobs, including working as a realtor, farming, and working for his family's leather store. He rejoined the army in 1861 with the beginning of the Civil War, taking the rank of colonel and commanding a volunteer regiment in Kentucky. Grant was known for his aggressive leadership as a commander, earning him promotions throughout the Civil War, all the way up to commander of all Union armies. Ulysses S. Grant continued. Grant said of warfare, "The art of war is simple enough. Find out where your enemy is, get at him as soon as you can, strike at him as hard as you can, and keep moving." Grant used the Union's resources to his advantage. Unlike Winfield Scott, he intended on wearing the South down until it gave in and gave up. After earning the Union's first victory at Shiloh, Grant was promoted. He continued his success at the Battle of Vicksburg, the Battle of Chattanooga, and finally with the surrender of Lee and the Confederate Army at Appomattox. After the war, Grant became involved in politics and was later elected as the 18th President of the United States. P.G.T. Beauregard. He lived from 1818 until 1893. He was a general for the Confederacy. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point, served under Winfield Scott during the Mexican-American War. After the war, he was in charge of the Army's Engineer Department in Mississippi and Louisiana. Some important battles he was involved in included the Battle of Fort Sumter, the First Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Shiloh, and the Siege of Corinth. Noteworthy accomplishments include that he was instrumental in early Confederate victories, but was not as influential later on because of a poor relationship with Jefferson Davis. John Bell Hood. He lived from 1831 until 1879. He was a general for the Confederacy. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point, served under Albert Sidney Johnston and Robert E. Lee while fighting against Indians. Important battles that he fought in included the Peninsula Campaign, the 7 Days Battles, the Second Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, and the Battle of Gettysburg. Noteworthy accomplishments include, while successful early on, especially during the 7 Days Battles and the Second Bull Run, the more Hood was promoted, the less effective he was. He was known for his aggressive and sometimes even reckless leadership. Albert Sidney Johnston. He lived from 1803 until 1862. He was a general for the Confederacy. Before the Civil War, he began his career during the Black Hawks Wars, joined the Texas Army during the War for Texas Independence, and fought for the U.S. Army during the Mexican-American War. Important battles include the Battle of Mill Springs and the Battle of Shiloh. He was regarded as the finest general in the Confederacy by Jefferson Davis and helped lead them to success early on. He was killed at the Battle of Shiloh. James Longstreet. He lived from 1821 until 1902. He was a general for the Confederacy. Before the war, he graduated from West Point at the bottom of his class. He served in the Mexican-American War. Battles he participated in included the Second Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Chickamauga, the 7 Days Battles, the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of the Wilderness, and the Battle of Gettysburg. He was second in command under Robert E. Lee. While he helped the Confederacy succeed in various battles, he is still infamous for disagreeing with Lee at Gettysburg, leading to the disastrous Pickett's Charge. Jeb Stuart. He lived from 1833 until 1864. He was a general for the Confederacy. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point, served in the U.S. Army in Kansas and Texas, fought in the Native American Wars, fought during Bleeding Kansas, and like Jackson and Lee, he helped arrest John Brown. Important battles he was a part of included the First Battle of Bull Run, the Peninsula Campaign, the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Chancellorsville, and the Battle of Gettysburg. He was an important cavalry commander and a trusted aide to Robert E. Lee. Irvin McDowell. He lived from 1818 until 1885. He was a general for the Union. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point, fought in the Mexican-American War, served under both Winfield Scott and Joseph E. Johnston. Important battles he participated in included the First Battle of Bull Run and the Second Battle of Bull Run. He was best known as the commander of the Union Army during the defeat at First Bull Run. He fought against his former West Point classmate, P.G.T. Beauregard. Ambrose Burnside. He lived from 1824 until 1881. He fought for the Union. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point and served in the Mexican-American War. Important battles he participated in included the First Battle of Bull Run, the North Carolina and Maryland campaigns, and the Battle of Fredericksburg. While successful as a commander, he was a failure as a general when he replaced McClellan, losing horribly at Fredericksburg. After the war, he served as a senator and governor in Rhode Island and as the first president of the National Rifle Association. The term sideburns are named after him. Joseph Hooker. He lived from 1814 until 1879. He was a general for the Union. Before the Civil War, he graduated from West Point, served in the Mexican-American War. Afterwards, he unsuccessfully attempted to run for office in California. Important battles he participated in included the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Battle of Chancellorsville, and the Atlanta Campaign. He replaced Burnside after Fredericksburg, but lost to Lee at Chancellorsville, which prompted Lincoln to remove him from command before Gettysburg. He was nicknamed Fighting Joe. Summary. Military leadership was essential to success during the Civil War. Generals Lee and Jackson helped the South succeed early on, but Grant eventually led the North to victory. Please make sure you have all the terms written down and the summary.